I racked up $30,000 of debt and paid it all off in my 20s, by 27 to be exact, a couple weeks ago to be even more exact. I'm going to share with you my story, my strategy for paying this debt off, so that hopefully if you are in a similar situation, if you're trying to pay off your debt, you can take a thing or two from this video, apply it to your own debt repayment plan, and be debt-free in no time. The very first debt I ever took on were my student loans. I got those when I was 18 going off to college, and those totaled up to $13,500. This is significantly less than average. Average is around $30,000 for student loan debt. I was fortunate that my parents helped out a good bit. I also had financial aid the first 2 years, and I had academic scholarships the last 2 years that I was in school. So I was able to graduate, get my degree, and come out with $13,000 in student loan debt as opposed to $30K. Very grateful for that. I got my first credit card when I was 21. I started using it immediately like it was free money and going out and buying clothes and drinks and food, and racked up $1,700 in credit card debt. Thank God my credit limit was not too high. It was about $2,000 at the time, but I clearly used all of it, or almost all of it. And so I'm really glad that I got that under control when I did. Last but definitely not least is my auto loan. That totaled up to $15,000. When I moved out to LA, LA's a car city, I had to get a car. I did not have money for a car. I put down $600 and the rest I had to finance. So this was definitely a big mistake financially. I should have got a much cheaper car, but obviously, you know the title of this video, it's paid off, it's in the past. When I was looking for a car, my requirements were it needed to have good gas mileage, so I was looking at hybrids for the most part. It needed to be used, it needed to have less than 100,000 miles, and it needed to have no damage history. So I ended up with a 2016 Ford Fusion, 55,000 miles on it, hybrid, and it's been a great car for me. In total, that brings my debt to $30,326. That peaked at about 22 years old, and over the last 5 years, I've been working to pay it off. According to Ramsey Solutions, the average American between 18 and 29 has $13,000 in non-mortgage debt. If you're like me, in that age range, good chance you can relate to these numbers, so hopefully there's something that you can take away from this video and use to positively impact your debt repayment situation. That's the goal here, is to help you guys out by sharing my story and my strategy. For me, there are 5 things that I did that made the biggest impact on my debt repayment plan. I'm going to share those from most impactful to least impactful, so that if you got somewhere to be in a minute, you get the most bang for your buck, you hear the most important thing first. That said, they're all equally important. The number one thing that I did to help pay off my debt was I lived well below my means. I was fortunate enough in my early 20s, 20 to 25, to live with my parents off and on. So I spent about 2 years in total. I lived with them 3 separate times in that period, but 2 years total, and that saved me a ton of money. Some of the time I was living with them, I was paying rent. Other times I was living there for free, but obviously when I was paying rent, it was significantly less than what I would be paying living in LA. So this was huge for me, especially when it came to getting out of credit card debt, which I did while I was living with my parents during one of those stints. Obviously, depending on your family situation, this may or may not be possible. Maybe there's an aunt or uncle or grandparent or someone that you could live with if your immediate family situation isn't as good, but there are other ways to save money when it comes to living expenses. When I was not living with family, I was living with roommates. Still to this day, I'm living with roommates, and I plan to live with roommates for the foreseeable future because it is a great way to save a lot of money, especially if you live in a big city like LA. I currently pay about $1,100 a month for rent. If I were to get a 1-bedroom, the average is sitting around $2,400. That is insane. I'm not paying that at this stage in my life. That's just not important to me. I'd rather save the money. I'd rather invest the money. I'd rather use it to pay off debt. Don't have debt anymore, but obviously it was a big reason why I was able to pay my debt off as fast as I did. Also, when it comes to having fun, for me, most of my time was spent outdoors, hiking, biking, surfing, rock climbing, going on runs. Especially now, there's a whole bunch of like fitness communities, running communities, biking communities, climbing communities that you can join if you're interested in any of those things. And that's a great way to have fun for free, not have to go out and spend a bunch of money on drinks or on food or on experiences and activities. Like, these are free experiences that you can go out and do. And so if you're paying off debt or you're trying to prioritize your finances, find free activities that you can do that bring you joy, that bring you around people. That's going to be super important when you're in this period of debt repayment. My wardrobe is also made up of $5 black and white t-shirts. Today's a little different. I should have worn a black or white t-shirt, but I'm out of debt, so I wore a gray t-shirt. Anyway, point is, I found ways in life to cut costs that didn't significantly impact my quality of life. And I think that's really important because you don't want to live a life that you hate. These lifestyle choices allowed space in my budget for me to allocate extra money to pay off debt and pay down that principal balance. The second thing, and this is arguably just as important as the first, is that I tracked every single expense that I made. This is something that I've preached in other videos. I think tracking your expenses on a regular basis, for me, I track them monthly. I think it's so important. It's going to show you areas in your finances where you're spending more than you think you are. There's gonna be a couple of those areas. For me, it's eating out, where I spend a lot more than I thought I did. For you, it might be buying clothes, it might be shopping on Amazon, it might be traveling, who knows? Everyone's different. But there's most likely an area in your spending, or a couple areas in your spending, where you're spending more than you want to. And you could cut back pretty easily without feeling like you're making a huge sacrifice, and that money can be funneled toward your debt. So that's super important. I personally just use a spreadsheet to track all of my expenses at the end of each month. I've linked to that below down in the description. I created a template for you guys to use. It's completely free. Just want to help out. But also, if you're not someone who wants to live in spreadsheet world, there are apps like YNAB and Mint and Rocket Money. I don't have any affiliation to any of them, but I've tried them out. I like them well enough. I like the spreadsheet more, but if you're someone who doesn't want to do all the numbers yourself, go check out one of those apps and they'll do a decent job of tracking your money. The third most important thing that I did when it came to paying off my debt was I paid myself first every single paycheck. For me, I put aside a little bit over 30% of each paycheck and I pay myself with that. When I say pay myself, that money goes towards paying off debt, goes towards investing, saving, net worth building activities. So when I was in this debt repayment phase, a lot of it, a large percentage of what I was paying myself was going straight towards debt. I was still saving a little bit, still investing a little bit, but I'd say over 90% was going towards my debt repayment during this time period. You'll have to figure out for yourself what your percentage is, what percentage of your paycheck you're gonna pay yourself. If you're just starting off, I do not recommend trying to shoot for 30%. I would shoot for 5, 10, 15%. Work your way up so that it doesn't feel super restrictive right off the bat. But make sure you're paying yourself first every time your paycheck hits. Think of it like a non-negotiable bill that you have to pay. It doesn't matter what else you got going on in life. It doesn't matter that there's a trip you want to go on. You gotta pay yourself first, then you pay your bills, then what's left you can have fun with. So that's number 3. The fourth thing that I did when it came to paying off my debt is that I had a rule: 50% of any unexpected money that came in throughout the year, whether that is a bonus, a tax return, side hustle money, if you get birthday, Christmas, any sort of gift money, half of that has to go towards paying off your debt. Oftentimes, I put all of it towards my debt. That's just who I am. But at the bare minimum, half of it has to go towards your debt. The other half you can use to have fun with, give yourself a little breathing room in your finances, go on a trip, buy yourself some clothes, whatever it is you like to spend your money on. Allow yourself to have some fun. Number 5 on the list, which remember I said is the least important, this is the actual strategy that I used when it came to repaying my debt. And I used something called the Avalanche Method, which means I paid the highest interest debt first and the lowest interest debt last. The first step in the Avalanche Method is to know the interest rates on all of your debts. List them out from highest to lowest. Often credit cards are going to be the highest, and then personal loans, auto loans, student loans, mortgages are going to follow. But go through all of your accounts just to be sure and list out the interest rates. Next step is that you're going to go into all of your accounts. You're going to set up minimum monthly automatic payments. Yeah. And you're going to set those so that you don't have to worry about missing a payment. Make sure all those minimum payments are being hit each month. As much as you can automate your debt repayment, the better. Next up, you're going to figure out how much you're going to put towards your debt each month on top of the minimum payments. Whatever that amount is going to vary person to person depending on your situation, depending on your expenses, depending on how much income you make. But figure out what your number is, what you're going to pay yourself from each paycheck, And that number is going to go towards the principal balance on your highest interest debt every time your paycheck hits. If your paycheck hits bi-weekly, you go into your account, boom, first thing you do as soon as the paycheck hits, pay off that amount of your loan. Once that first debt is paid off, move on to the next highest and continue to do the same thing. This is going to end up saving you a ton in interest compared to dividing up your monthly payments evenly across all your loans. You're going to save a lot more money doing it this way. That said, it's not the only way to pay off debt. You can split it up evenly and do that instead. If that feels better to you, you can attack your smallest debt first in terms of actual dollar value and attack that one first so that you just knock that one out and then move on to the next smallest. It really doesn't matter. That's why I put the strategy at the end. As long as you're actively paying off extra towards your principal balance of your debt on a regular basis, and you're also bringing the other strategies that I've mentioned into your financial toolbox, you're going to pay your debt off much faster than you are now. One of the biggest challenges that I faced early on was this optimism that in the future I'm going to be making so much more money that this $100 I'm spending here, $50 I'm spending there, it's not going to matter. I'm going to be able to pay it off no problem. This is something I'm noticing a lot of my peers struggle with too. I think there's a mindset that we're at the beginning of our careers, we're young, we're going to be making so much more money in the future, so those expenses right now, the little bit of credit card debt we might have, the student loans, whatever, it's not going to be that big of a deal because we're going to make so much more, it's going to be so much easier, we'll pay it all off in 1 or 2 lump sum payments 5 years down the line. That's a dangerous mindset to have. And the problem with that mindset is that if you don't adjust your mindset in between now and when you make more money, guess what? You're going to have the same exact mindset and you're going to go, well, I'm making more money now and I still have this debt, but I have a pretty good feeling that I'm going to be making more money in 5 years and it'll be even easier in 5 years. So why not just wait another 5 years? Guess what? When you get to that next 5-year segment, you're going to think the same thing. It's a mindset that will follow you no matter how much money you make. You can always make more money. It will always be easier in the future to pay your debt off. Problem is, throughout that whole time, you're accruing interest on your debt, and you're not necessarily guaranteed to make more money. At a certain point, you're going to cap out. And if you haven't made those payments, and you've been racking up debt thinking that you're going to make more and more money, you're going to find yourself in a really tough spot in the future. So instead of relying on your future self to pay off your current self's debt, let's rely on our current selves, rely on our current situations, rely on our current income to pay off our debt. Start with a small percentage, work your way up. As you make more money, increase that percentage so that you're increasing the speed at which you're paying your debt off. That's how you fast track your debt repayment. That's how I did it. And I was in school for the first 3 years of paying off my debt. So I wasn't making a ton of money. And the percentage of my income that I was putting towards my debt was not what it is today. But as I started to work, as I got promotions, as I got new jobs, as I got salary bumps, I increased that percentage every single time. So by the time I was making my last couple payments, I was knocking out that debt like $1,500 chunks at a time. Just boom, 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 every couple weeks. So that's that. You've got my blueprint on debt repayment. That is exactly how I went about it. I hope that there was something in my story and my strategy that resonated with you that you can take and apply to your debt repayment so that you can get out of debt hopefully sooner than you thought you would. That said, there are other ways to repay your debt, so if this video didn't resonate with you, go watch other videos, read other books on personal finance, on debt repayment. There are other options, so find one that works for you and tackle your debt in that way. Thank you guys for watching this video. Good luck with your debt repayment. I hope you get out of debt soon. I hope you don't have to live with that burden anymore. If you have any feedback, any questions, drop those down in the comments below. I will get to pretty much all of them. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. I felt good. I felt confident as a